There's no arguing that Maui had some of the coolest tattoos in all of Disney, and when they danced around his skin, they became even more mesmerizing. But one thing that Disney never took the time to explain was how Maui ended up with those tattoos in the first place, or how they were able to move so freely. It seems like Disney's silence may have been influenced by the possible dark origin of Maui's tattoos, because while they may look really great, if this theory is correct, they only exist because of all of the hardship that Maui went through in his very long life. In order to discover the dark origin of Maui's tattoos and what makes them move, it's important to go back to the very beginning. Now, I don't mean that baby Maui had tattoos, that would be crazy and look a bit ridiculous, but that doesn't mean the tattoos, or at least the reason for existing, didn't all start with the way that Maui's birth family treated him. After all, Maui's origin story was really sad in the movie, even if it was only glossed over in a few simple sentences. In Moana, Maui explained that when he was born, his parents took a single look at him and realized something truly horrible. They didn't want him. Now, as a parent, it should be almost instinctual that you have to love and protect your child at all costs, but sadly for Maui, he never got that. His parents clearly didn't want to burden themselves with the task of raising a child. But here's where things get even worse. Instead of just giving the child to another family or someone who would actually take care of Maui, they chose to kill him. The movie obviously doesn't use that terminology, considering that it was supposed to be family-friendly, but Maui's childhood was described as his parents throwing him into the ocean. And when they did that, they definitely weren't thinking that he would just float away and live a happy life. No, they threw their baby into the water hoping that he would drown. Well, according to Moana, much like Maui's parents had expected, the child started to sink into the depths of the ocean. Luckily for Maui, he had a proverbial angel on his shoulder. As he sank down into the ocean, Maui wound up being saved by the gods, who would not only bring him back to the surface, but they gave him the powers of a demigod, all because his parents didn't want him. Now, if that wasn't sad enough, think about the emotional toll that being abandoned like that would have taken on Maui. Honestly, because of his parents' actions, Maui could have gone down two very different paths. On the one hand, the newly made demigod could have gone on to resent humans for the trials and hardships that he was forced to face so young. But as you know, that wasn't what ended up happening. Instead, Maui continued to love humans and began working as hard as he could to please them. But what does any of this have to do with Maui's tattoos? Believe it or not, after his parents ditched him, the sense of disapproval that Maui felt may have played a big part in the demigod getting his skin all inked up. I mean, his justified abandonment issues were what led Maui to seek out human approval in the first place. Even though the human had been granted a gift by the gods to become a demigod, Moana still makes it very clear that the demigod had this almost insatiable hunger for human approval. He would do anything to make them happy, or help make their lives a little better. That's basically the entire premise of his introductory song, You're Welcome. The entire time he's singing about all of the amazing things that he's done for humans, but not just because he wanted to. No, as the title of the song suggests, Maui only ever wanted to be thanked for his actions, which was why he was saying, "You're welcome." And that's not necessarily a bad thing. By that point in Maui's life, the two humans he was supposed to be able to trust the most, his parents, literally left him for dead. But instead of resenting mankind for those actions, Maui may have found himself pining for their approval. That being said, Moana was obviously set during a time period way before electricity, trending news, or viral videos, meaning that the only way anyone would ever hear about Maui's good deeds would be either to see them in person or simply by hearsay. This is where Maui's tattoos may have come into play. I mean, what better way to show everything that you've done for mankind than by wearing it on your skin like a tapestry? Now, you probably remember all of the things that Maui did for humans just through his song alone, and who could blame you? You're Welcome was an absolute smash. But just in case you forgot one of Maui's many great deeds that led him to cover his body with tattoos, here's a quick list. Maui was supposedly responsible for getting fire for mankind, which he stole from down below. On top of that, he claimed to have lassoed the sun to make for longer days. If that's not deserving of a thank you, I don't know what is. Not to mention, he also claimed to harness the breeze for humans to utilize, and even created islands by pulling land up from the bottom of the sea. But the best thing about all of Maui's stories was, if you didn't believe them, he had the closest thing to photographic proof that he could have had back then. All of his deeds were mystically tattooed onto his body. The reason I say mystically is that it was likely some sort of gift from the same gods that saved him, and would explain why his tattoos could move freely. Each tattoo that Maui had in Moana clearly depicted a single deed that he did that would've or should've earned him the approval from the humans that he sought. However, as you know, he took his actions for mankind a bit too far when Maui tried to take the heart of Te Fiti. And even though the movie explained that he did so with good intentions as a way to give humans the power of creation, his need for validation took him too far. Upon stealing the heart, Te Fiti faded away and Te Kā emerged, spreading death and destruction all across the seas. In the process, Maui was struck out of the sky and was separated from his magical fishhook. Luckily for him, he managed to land on or near a small island that he was then trapped on for centuries all alone. Or at least, mostly alone. You see, Maui's song, "You're Welcome," may have explained where his other tattoos came from. But what about Mini Maui? Where did he come from? Well, in a strange way, Maui had to create a parental figure for himself. Only in this case, it was in the form of another tattoo, which brings us to Mini Maui. Now, it's important to point out that Disney never explained when Mini Maui was first inked onto the skin of his full-size self, so all of this is just a theory. But it seems like there's a good chance that Maui created his mini-me while he was stranded all alone on that island in the middle of the sea. Think about it. Not only would Maui have been beyond lonely after a while, but his hunger for approval probably never went away. So using the gift that the gods bestowed on him, he created a very supportive version of himself, one that could run from one of his magical tattoos to another, constantly reminding Maui of all of the good things that he did. In a way, that's exactly what a real parent would have done for Maui if he had had one. He would constantly be told of how proud they were of him and all of the things he did to help humanity. Most of all, they would support him when he was at a low point, like when he was trapped on an island. But another important aspect that Maui was missing from his life after being abandoned by his parents was the concept of being held accountable for his actions, which is another thing that Mini Maui made sure to do. It seemed that anytime Maui was rude to Moana or unwilling to help her if the ocean didn't have her back, Mini Maui did. Not to mention how seemingly delighted the tattoo was when Maui agreed to help Moana return the heart of Te Fiti. This could have been Disney's way of showing that Maui's tattoo knew the difference between right and wrong, even more so than the real Maui did. But because of their bond, Mini Maui always tried to help the bigger version of himself do the right thing, or at least put him on the path of doing the right thing. Now, as for the bond between Maui and the miniature tattooed version of himself, there is a really interesting concept. Even though one was clearly made out of ink, the demigod was still very attached to him as if he was an actual person. At least, that's clearly what the creators had in mind, especially when you hear about a scene that was cut from the movie during early development. According to Disney, Maui's tattoo would look like it was drowning, and Maui would comedically freak out about it. Apparently, in the scene, Maui was shown talking to Mini Maui and showing genuine concern. And though the scene never made its way into the final cut of the film, it was the scene that really attached the filmmakers to the character Mini Maui. Not only that, but if it was in the movie, it would have shown just how much Maui cared for his tattoo, showing a connection that the two shared that goes beyond ink and skin. Now, whether or not this theory is true, it really seems like Maui's tattoos were created for him as a way to gain constant approval for all of the good deeds he has done. All except for Mini Maui, which may have been created to replace the role that Maui's parents would have typically played in his life. What do you think, though? Do you have any idea where Maui's tattoos came from and why they were able to move around? Be sure to let me know your theories in the comments below.